never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It is a Wednesday, so of course it's time for another weekly Top 10 Countdown. Next Wednesday will be the final Top 10 Countdown of the year. If you have any suggestions or ideas for a future Top 10 Countdown starting in 2023, please feel free to let me know. Today's Top 10 Countdown is going to be fun, and it might stir the pot a little bit, but honestly it's going to be short because I can't really give a lot of opinion on it, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. But I've mentioned before that I follow a lot of Facebook groups about sports. I'm involved in one that's NASCAR, one that's Major League Baseball, one that's NBA basketball, and one that's college sports. Now, it's geared toward college basketball and college football, but honestly, it could be anything collegiate sports-wise. And I encourage you to type it up and become a member, but if not, at least type it up and scroll down the page and see what all's on there, because if you're a college sports fan, you will like the page. It's called College Sports Realm, and that is spelled R-E-A-L-M. And this Top 10 Countdown was actually from a guy named Big Game Boomer, so it wasn't from anybody from College Sports Realm. It was from Big Game Boomer, and it was shared on College Sports Realm. And I saw it on there on Monday, I believe it was, if memory serves me correct. But it's the top 10 friendliest fan bases. And if I can remember, next week I'm going to do top 10 unfriendliest fan bases, because Big Game Boomer did do a top 10 in both. He actually did a top 20 in both, but of course I narrowed it down to 10. So this is the top 10 friendliest fan bases in college sports. Number 10, Washington. Number 9, Illinois. Number 8, Baylor. Number 7, Notre Dame. And number 6, Purdue. Again, 10 through 6, Washington, Illinois, Baylor, Notre Dame, and Purdue. Number 5, Texas A&M. Number 4, Syracuse. Number 3, Nebraska. Number 2, Auburn. And the friendliest fan base in all of college sports, according to Big Game Boomer, is the Wisconsin Badgers. Now, if you look over that list, you notice that most of the teams are in the Midwest area. So it seems like the Midwest fans are a lot more level-headed than fans here in the South. Most fans here in the South are just over-the-top obnoxious, who take sports way too serious. So it seems like in the Midwest area, they're a little more level-headed. It might just be a coincidence, but according to Big Game Boomer, the Midwest fans are a lot friendlier than especially the South. But this is something, as I said, you really can't comment on, and you really can't give your opinion because you've been to 5 college stadiums and 4 of the 5 was a team you pull for, because you're only going to have an opinion on 5 or 6 teams. And every fan base has about, I say, 3 to 4 thousand fans who are the most positive fans ever, especially if the team they pull for happens to be really good right now. Their team is the best in the country. They're never going to lose again. Nobody's going to beat them. And then every fan base has 3 or 4 thousand fans that they claim they're a fan of the team, but yet they're negative all the time. The team they pull for, they're never going to win again. They might as well fire the coach, fire the OC, get a new quarterback, shut the program down. We ain't never going to win again. And usually, right in between is where you have the majority of the fan base. But the level headed fans, you're not going to find on social media. The level headed fans, you won't hear on the radio. The level headed fans, you won't see on TV. The level headed fans, you won't meet unless you travel and go to that team's football game, wherever they play at. Because on all these football teams' message boards, the only people that ever comment are the ones that are over the top positive or over the top negative. The ones in the middle don't do stuff like that. So if you just follow message boards and things like that, you really can get bad impressions of teams, because all you see is either over the top positivity or over the top negativity. I don't know why, but the level headed fans just don't do all the social media and radio and things like that. So unless you do travel and actually meet the majority of the fans, you don't really know about a team's fan base. Here in the South, where I'm at, I know a ton of Georgia fans, and I know a few Gamecock fans, a few Clemson fans, a few Georgia Tech fans, a few Bama fans, and I know one Oregon fan, but he only pulls for them because he likes their colors. He's not from Oregon. He's never been to Oregon. He's never been to a game. He just pulls for them because of their colors. So you really can't ask him a whole lot, because he just pulls for them because, hey, I like their colors. So you can't go by that one particular fan. But most of my opinions are teams that I have here in the South, because most of the teams that I've seen live and in person are here in the South. So I can't comment on a team in Oklahoma, and I can't comment on a team in California, because I've never been to a game there. And it's not fair to know 8, 9, 10 fans of a fan base and automatically assume because those 10 fans suck, the whole fan base sucks, because that's not how it is. But I do know that living here in Georgia, being born here in Georgia, being raised here in Georgia, used to work in Athens, a lot of times I know people think that I'm just saying stuff about Georgia because I don't like them, and that's not the case. I say stuff about Georgia because they're the fan base that I have the most experience with, because I've been here all my life. But it's not just my experiences personally. It's things that I've heard, things that I've read. I've heard people before on message boards and on the radio that have said they've traveled the world all over, and they've been to ball games in 47 states, and the most arrogant fans they've met are Georgia fans. I've actually met some Georgia fans. I used to work with a Georgia fan who said, you know what? I was raised here in Georgia. I was born here in Georgia, so I pull for the Bulldogs, but I hate their fans. And then a coworker of mine last week told me, you know, my grandpa said he pulls for Georgia, but he said Georgia's got some arrogant fans. I said, they do. So when I say stuff about Georgia, it's not because I hate Georgia. It's things that I've heard personally and things that I've experienced personally. And like I said, you're always in every fan base going to have the bad apples. But I have personally heard more stories about the Georgia Bulldog fan base than I have any other team in America. Now, my man Eric, who watches this channel religiously, he unfortunately has bad taste in football teams, so he pulls for Georgia. But he is one of the nicest, most kindest people you'll ever meet in your life. And he's a Georgia fan. But him being a Georgia fan doesn't separate the entire fan base. That just separates Eric. If all Georgia fans could be like Eric, they'd be okay. But unfortunately, Eric is the good apple involved in all of the bad apples. And the majority of it, most of it, comes from the fact that even though they only won one national championship in all those years, Georgia, for the most part, was a perennial powerhouse every year. They never were good enough to win it, but they were always good enough to be considered for it back in the voting days. And they've been pretty much a playoff team just about every year, on the verge of the playoffs every year. And back in the BCS days, they were usually top 5, top 6, top 10 almost every year. So when a team pretty much for 25 years wins every year all the time, for some reason it makes most of the fan base arrogant and unrealistic. I don't know why that is. That's just the way it is. So the longer you win, the more arrogant your fans are. And it sucks in a way because, like I said, my man Eric is an awesome guy. But when you have somebody like Eric, more people need to be like him and strive to be like him. But for some reason, when a fan base wins and their team wins, it makes the fan base get more and more arrogant. And it sucks because you do have those fans that are level-headed, that are good, but they get a bad rap because they pull for a team when 90% of their fan base is arrogant. So it makes people think every one of their fans are that way, and that's not so. Most of the fans are that way, but they're not all that way. But when you pull for a team that wins, the more they win, the worse their fans get. I don't know why that is. That's just the way that it is. And it's not just in football, it's that way in every sport. If you go to North Carolina during basketball season between Duke and North Carolina, you'll meet some of the most arrogant people you'll ever meet. Why? Because Duke's always good and because the Tar Heels are always good. If you go to Clemson during basketball season, nobody cares. Why? Because Clemson always sucks in college basketball. That's just the way it is. The more you win, the more the fans expect. The more the fans expect, the more arrogant they become. It shouldn't be that way, but that's just the facts. Any thoughts on this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What kind of room has no doors or windows? A mushroom. And that wraps it up with today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.